So today we'll be talking about the immune system. What is the immune system, you may ask? Well, the immune system is kind of like the body's own bodyguard against infectious diseases and other organisms that can invade your body. Your body has three lines of defense. The first line of defense is part of your innate immunity and is nonspecific. Your first line of defense includes the big wrapping paper that covers your body, also known as your skin, and also your mucous membranes. The second line of defense is also innate and nonspecific, but this time, phagocytosis of white blood cells, antimicrobial proteins, and the inflammatory response come into play, all which we will talk about later. The third and last line of defense is your acquired immunity, which is specific. During this line of defense, lymphocytes and antibodies appear. Since we got the lines of defenses out of the way, let's get to the specifics. Let's talk about innate immunity versus acquired immunity. Your innate immunity is present before you are even exposed to pathogens. It is also effective from the time you are born. The external defenses of innate immunity are the skin and mucous membranes. Mucous membranes of the innate immunity line the digestive, respiratory, and genital tracts of the body and secrete mucus to catch microbes and other invaders, preventing colonization. Lysosomes are found present in these membranes, which digest the cell walls of the invading bacterium. The internal cellular and chemical defenses are where the second lines of defense come in: phagocytosis, antimicrobial proteins, and the inflammatory response, all of which we brought up earlier. Phagocytosis is the ingestion of invading organisms by certain types of white blood cells. Phagocyte cells attach to the surface receptors of the organisms, engulfing the cells and fusing with the lysosome. Quick review. Phago means to eat, and cyto means cell. Eat cell, literally. During phagocytosis, phagocytes produce antimicrobial proteins that signal for inflammation, inhibiting the spread of microbes. Let's talk about some of these phagocytic white blood cells, also known as leukocytes. Neutrophils, macrophages, and dendritic cells are a few the white blood cells use for defense. Neutrophils are the most abundant cell type that attract and enter infected tissue. Neutrophils also have short lifespan and is where pus comes from due to the dead cells. The macrophages are the big eaters, hence their name, and are also the long-lived phagocytic cells. Macrophages are activated through various pathways, where some travel through the body and others stay in the tissues of the lymphatic system. Lastly are the dendritic cells, which are located in the epidermis of the human body, whose main role is to stimulate acquired immunity. Have you ever fallen and scraped your knee? Ever noticed the blood clotting, swelling, and redness of the wound? Well, this happens through inflammatory response. During the inflammatory response, inflammatory chemicals called histamines are released when a person is injured. Once the response is triggered, macrophages are activated and send signal molecules that promote blood flow towards the injury and also promote the response itself. Also during the response, chemokines direct movement of the phagocytes and send signals for them to increase the production of compounds that kill off the microbes. The inflammatory response is very critical to the innate defense because it delivers antimicrobial proteins, allows for blood clotting to begin blocking the spread of microbes, and allows for more of the neutrophils to make their way to the injured tissue. Now let's move on to the systematic response. The systematic response signals for an incredible amount of white blood cells. An example of a systematic response would be a fever. You notice that when you're sick, your body heats up to denature and fight off the infections that have invaded your system. Unfortunately, there is an overwhelming response called septic shock. Septic shock is a common cause of death that is indicated by high fevers and low blood pressures. But on the other note, there are non-white blood cells that also inhibit the spread of microbes, called natural killer cells, that basically safeguard the body that attack infected cells and cancer cells. Once a cell is targeted, it is signaled for apoptosis, also known as the death of the cell. Still there? Good, because now we're going to talk about acquired immunity. Acquired immunity, just as it says in its name, is the type of immunity that the body acquires and gains throughout life. Acquired immunity, unlike innate immunity, is specific, meaning it is able to recognize the different pathogens that enter the body and determine the best way to destroy them. There are two types of acquired immunity: active immunity and passive immunity. Active immunity is attained by vaccinations and when your body makes the antibodies for defense. The antibodies your body makes will help you become resistant towards infectious bacteria such as Streptococcus. Passive immunity is gained in two ways. First, from when you are born by receiving antibodies from your mom. Another way is through an antibody serum, usually called an antidote in the movies. Cytokines are proteins that help activate the lymphocytes of the immune system. Antigens are the large molecules that bring out a response from the immune system. And the epitopes, also known as the antigen determinants, are part of the antigen that the lymphocyte recognizes. Speaking of lymphocyte recognition, let's talk about the antigen recognition by lymphocytes. There are two types of lymphocytes, the B lymphocytes and the T lymphocytes, also known as the B and T cells. Both these cells circulate through your blood and are assembled in the spleen, lymph nodes, and other lymphoid tissues. They also recognize the antigens by their antigen-specific receptors. B-cell receptors for antigens are Y-shaped molecules that have 4 polypeptide chains. The cells recognize antigens that are intact. T-cell receptors have two different types of polypeptide chains, gamma chains and beta chains, which are connected by disulfide bridges. The T-cell receptors are the ones that recognize the small fragments of antigens that are bound to MHC molecules. Class I MHC molecules are found in almost all cells of the body and they are recognized by cytotoxic T cells. Class II MHC molecules are made up by macrophages, B cells, and mostly found on dendritic cells. The last thing to talk about are the allergies and autoimmune diseases that affect the immune system. Allergies are basically the response to antigens called allergens. Most allergy symptoms consist of redness, sneezing, watery eyes, etc. Allergies release histamines, which help protect the body against infections. Sometimes the body makes harmless mistakes when reacting to allergens, and histamines must be suppressed by antihistamines. Autoimmune diseases occur when the immune system loses its tolerance and basically turns itself against the body. In other words, the body is fighting against the healthy body cells, thinking that they are foreign cells instead. Some autoimmune diseases that we study are ones such as lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and multiple sclerosis. Well, that's all we have for the immune system. Thanks for watching, and make sure to keep your immune system strong and healthy.